Bitcoin. Man, for over a decade now, has there been a more polarizing topic on the entire planet? On one side, you've got some of the most powerful financial minds in the world calling it a dangerous delusion. And on the other, millions of people who see it as an actual lifeline. So what's the real story? Is it a speculative toy or an essential tool for freedom? Let's dive in and see what the source material has to say.
All right, let's just jump right in with the heavy hitters. Charlie Munger, the legendary investor, did not mince words, did he? He called Bitcoin disgusting and contrary to the interests of civilization. Wow, that's a pretty intense way to kick things off. And of course, you knew this one was coming, right? You can't talk about Bitcoin critics without hearing from Warren Buffett, the famous rat poison squared line. I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than that. In his view, it's just a worthless, toxic delusion. The hits just keep on coming. Bill Gates chimed in, calling it a greater fool theory investment. You know, the idea that the only way you make money is by finding someone even more foolish than you to buy it off you at a higher price. Ouch. It paints a picture of nothing but hype. And finally, to round it all out, you've got Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan, just laying it out there, plain and simple, worthless. So, okay, we get it. From the absolute peak of the financial world, the verdict seems pretty harsh. But is that really the whole story? Okay, and this is where the whole narrative starts to pivot, because all of these men, for all their genius, share one very important thing. They were born into what the source material calls financial privilege. They live in a world with stable money, where property rights are respected, where the system just kind of works. But what about for everyone else? Whoa, okay, look at this. This chart, it really puts everything in perspective, doesn't it? That financial privilege we were just talking about, that's the reality for just 13% of the people on this planet. The other 87%, we're talking over 7 billion people, live under authoritarianism or with currencies that are constantly failing. This is the global monetary divide, and it's where the story of Bitcoin gets a whole lot different. So let's explore this. It's really a tale of two different financial worlds, what's been called the currency caste system. Let's make this feel a bit more real. Just imagine for a second. You've worked your entire life. You saved your money. You did all the right things. You go to sleep one night feeling like your future is secure. And you wake up and boom, 44% of everything you've ever saved is just gone. Poof, vanished. Not from a bad investment, not from a stock market crash, but because your government just decided to devalue the currency. And listen, this isn't some hypothetical nightmare. This literally happened to people in Malawi just last year. For billions, that risk is always there. And this quote, man, it just hits so hard. This educator from Iran basically says, look, all your fancy financial tools are useless to me. I'm locked out of your system, but I can use Bitcoin. It just perfectly captures how easy it is to call something useless when you're living inside that 13% bubble. For so many others, Bitcoin isn't an investment, it's access. And that brings us to the core of the counter-argument, that for a huge part of the world, Bitcoin isn't about getting rich. It's about having a lifeline, an escape hatch from financial systems that are completely failing them. So let's just break down the practical differences here. The traditional system, the fiat rails, you need permission, an ID, a bank account, you have to be allowed in. Bitcoin's rails, they're permissionless. Got an internet connection? You're in. What about the exchange rate? Well, in some places, it's totally rigged by the state. Bitcoin gives you the real global market rate. And this last one is huge. Humanitarian aid. It can be blocked by governments. With Bitcoin, you can send help directly to anyone, anywhere. No middlemen, no one to say no.
Okay, now this next idea is absolutely wild. It's called memorized wealth. I want you to really think about this. What if your entire life savings wasn't in a bank or in gold you had to carry, but it was a password in your head? That's what a seed phrase is, just 12 or 24 simple words. A refugee can literally flee a war zone, cross a border with nothing in their pockets, and as long as they have those words in their memory, their savings are safe. It's a form of wealth that cannot be physically seized. That's revolutionary.
And this isn't just a theory. These are real-world examples happening right now. It's being used to fund secret schools for girls in Afghanistan, to deliver direct aid to tens of thousands of families in Gaza, to support pro-democracy activists in Nigeria when the government shut down their bank accounts, even to help rescue victims of human trafficking. I mean, these are powerful, powerful stories of Bitcoin stepping in where the old system simply couldn't or wouldn't. You add all of this up, and it leads you to a very simple, very punchy conclusion from Alex Gladstein at the Human Rights Foundation. Bitcoin is bad for dictators. It's as simple as that. Why? Because it strikes at the very heart of their power, their control over money.
So how does that actually work? Well, just think about the authoritarian playbook, right? Their number one tool is censorship and confiscation. If they don't like you, they freeze your funds. Bitcoin's feature? It's uncensorable. They can't stop a transaction. Their next tool? Closed markets. They build walls around their economy. Bitcoin? Totally open. Anyone can participate. And the big one? Financial surveillance. They watch every move. Bitcoin offers an escape from that total state control. It's a direct counterpunch to their entire toolkit. Okay. But I know what you're thinking. The elephant in the room. What about all the energy it uses? Well, this final section of our explainer is all about reframing that entire debate, presenting Bitcoin not as an energy problem, but as an energy solution, what the source calls the Bitcoin battery. God, this is the one that comes up every single time. But doesn't Bitcoin waste a ton of energy? We've all heard the narrative that it's an environmental disaster, that it's boiling the oceans. But what if that entire way of looking at it is wrong? Let's dig in. So check out this chart first. It tells a really fascinating story. What it shows is a direct line between how much energy a country uses and how prosperous it is. You don't find any wealthy countries that use a tiny amount of energy. So if we want to lift billions of people out of poverty, maybe the goal shouldn't be to use less energy. Maybe the goal should be to find ways to make a whole lot more energy, cleanly and cheaply. And this brings us to the core of the counterargument. The myth we always hear is that Bitcoin wastes energy. But the reality, this perspective argues, is that Bitcoin actually saves and monetizes wasted energy. Okay, I know how that sounds. So how on earth could that possibly work? So Bitcoin miners are this really unique energy buyer. They're totally mobile. They can pack up and go anywhere in the world where there's cheap power. And that's the key. It means they can go to places where energy is being completely wasted. Think about a remote hydro dam in Malawi at 3 a.m. Nobody's using that electricity. A miner can set up right there and buy it. Or think about a super sunny day in California when the grid is so overloaded with solar, it literally has to throw power away. Miners can soak that up. They can even recycle their waste heat to do useful things. They're basically a buyer of last resort for energy nobody else wants, which gives companies a financial reason to build more energy projects in the first place. So when you put all of this together, you get this kind of ironic twist. The argument is that Bitcoin isn't an ESG nightmare. It's the ultimate ESG asset. Let's break it down. For E, environmental, it reduces energy waste and makes green energy more profitable. For S, social, it provides financial inclusion and protects human rights. And for G, governance, it's a neutral, transparent, incorruptible standard for everyone. It just completely flips the script. It's a pretty powerful idea, right? That instead of relying purely on charity, you have a system that harnesses basic self-interest, the desire to make a profit, and channels it into creating more energy and more freedom around the world. So we come back to where we started. After looking at this other side of the coin, what do you think? Is Bitcoin just rat poison, squared, a speculative toy for that privileged 13%? Or is it something far more important? Is it essential infrastructure for the other 87% of the world? That's the question this analysis leaves us with.